Hello, everyone. I am Daisy Huang, Senior Vice President of Sales and Customer Success at Katalon.
Hi, everybody. My name is Angeline Gavino, and I'm the Vice President of Customer Success at Katalon. Welcome to the Women in Tech podcast, your go-to space for celebrating the remarkable achievements, stories, and insights of extraordinary women in the ever-evolving world of technology.
Each episode is a journey into the lives of these amazing women, where we uncover the stories, triumphs, and wisdom they've gained along their unique path.
So, buckle up for an intimate conversation as we delve into the incredible stories of our outstanding guests.
Thank you so much, everybody, for joining the webinar, one of our most favorite ones regarding women in tech, and in particular, women in tech. For this particular episode, we're very excited to be welcoming Ritu to the webinar today. In particular, we would like to talk to Ritu regarding motherhood in tech and what is the path that she has gone and the journey that she has embraced as part of kind of growing in the corporate world while trying to balance as a working mom. So I'm excited to welcoming you here to the panel today, Ritu, and perhaps you can get started with a little bit about your introduction.
Sure. But firstly, thank you so much, Daisy, and to the entire Katalon team. This is something which, obviously as a woman who's been in this industry for a fairly long time, and yes, my gray hairs talk about it. It's definitely a journey which has been exciting, and love to share it with the others in case they can find anything which they can use as a part of their journey as well. Very short introduction about myself. I've been in Wipro for more than 23 years, but my journey started way back in the early 70s. I grew up in a place called Kolkata in India. It's in the eastern part of the country. I keep on telling people that I do not have an engineering background. I actually have a background in economics, and then I graduated with a master's in marketing. And hence, sales was my obvious choice in the initial days. I'm married. I've got 2 kids. Both of them are in Bangalore, still staying with me. They've not left the nest as yet. And left to me, I would never let them, leave the nest. My eldest is my daughter, who is 17. My younger one, my son, who is 13. And yeah, my husband is also in the same industry and mostly supportive. No, but I'm just throwing shade on him. Very, very supportive person, because I think that's one of the things which I realized, that for a working mom, whatever be the industry, unless you've got a strong support network and unless you've got a partner who is supportive, it does become extremely difficult to go ahead, with your journey. So that's a little bit about myself and where I'm from.
Wow. I mean, 23 years in Wipro is not a short time at all. And I'm actually quite surprised to hear about your marketing/sales background, moving to a brand manager, and now you're in the QE world. So can you walk me through how all of that evolved?
After I left my MBA, after I completed my MBA rather, I took up a job in Philips. And in those days, it was what I like to call as frontline sales. So I was selling electronics in the early days. And it was a very, very interesting and exciting period because, a lot of times when we're in IT, but I'm sure, in the product sales perspective, you will be able to appreciate that. But when you're in the services, organization, everything is kind of very, very esoteric. Yes, you know that you're selling a proposal to the client. Yes, the team is working, but you never get to see the money, right? So when I was in durable sales, I actually would, and I was in the distribution network. So I've gone and done a lot of money collection in terms of the payments from my dealers, from my distributors, etc. And I still keep on talking about that experience that, it really made me realize how hard you have to work for, whatever is the currency that you're talking about. But and I think that's something which has molded my professional journey in a very, very significant way because, well, when you're in school, like a lot of other youngsters, it was more in terms of have fun. But I think those initial years really made me realize that fun is overrated. So you need to get your head down after a while and start working. I moved to Bangalore because it's a city which I always loved, having done my MBA from here. And I joined a dot com for an initial period of time. And I used to laughingly say that, I'm not com joining a dot com. Um, well, this was still before the bubble burst. And I worked there for about 4 months. And I realized, yes, this was a nice break. Now let me do something serious. So I joined Wipro. I joined Wipro as a corporate brand manager. Then I took up a distribution role. Uh, but then I was thinking of going back to Bombay because it's not fun. Mumbai, as we call it now. And then I met one of my, a senior colleague of mine, and he said, "Hey, you know what? I'm setting up a consulting group. Would you want to be a part of it? Because we're looking for somebody like you." And I joined that particular group. We were one of the initial 4 or 5 people who had joined. When I left that group, we were about 600 odd people. I was responsible for the P&L of the non-Americas. I had 2 children in this interim time period. So I said, let me take up a different role. So I took up a role in the global delivery organization of Wipro, really looking in terms of how can you improve operational excellence. So I moved to a kind of a non-business role, if I can call it as such. But it's very difficult for, and I remember my mother saying that, "Oh, good," because in the initial days I was traveling like crazy. Every month I used to travel, and she was like, "Oh, good. Now you're going to be having a little bit of a relaxed life." But it's like I don't know if you've seen we have this particular spice called, and I'm forgetting the English name of it. It's called rye, which is basically mustard seeds. If you've seen mustard seeds, I was saying in my country that you've got mustard seeds under your feet, which basically means you're never able to stop at one place. You're constantly on the.
I see.
So that's what happened. I took up a role which is supposed to be cushy, and then I was going about doing all kinds of things. And there was one particular initiative at that point of time which was not having a lot of focus. And then I went and told my boss, "Why don't I take charge of this?" And then I gradually moved into the world of agile, DevOps, DevSecOps. I bootstrapped another practice. And then after having done all of that, my boss told me that, you keep on talking about a lot of new things. Can you take up a challenge of, addressing something which has been in Wipro for a long period of time and make a difference? I said, "Yeah, give me a challenge. Why not?" And that's where, the testing came into my life, so to speak.
Well, what a journey. Thank you, Ritu, for sharing. I think I don't remember where I read it last, but there was a saying that I really liked, which was your career always makes sense in hindsight. You look back and you're like, I took that step, which allowed me to take this additional step, which allowed me to take that additional step. And I love hearing how your career evolved from something that's so revenue oriented to a delivery model to learn more about agile and to where you are today. So very interesting. Thank you for sharing, Ritu. What one of the key areas that I want to touch on today is leadership, right? I think both of us are very much aware that women in tech is very rare, but women in tech leadership is incredibly rare. In fact, I was just reading the stats assess, according to a survey of 100 women in the tech industry, 72% believe the career is still suffering because of childcare and family responsibilities, right? So as part of, from your time at Wipro, have you experienced a little bit about, kind of challenges balancing between life at home and life at work? And what were some of the tactics or some of the strategies that you had in order to start balancing it out?
I'll talk about the strategies later on, but I'm a storyteller at heart. So I'll tell you three stories. My first story was when I had my first child. So my water broke somewhere in the middle of the night, and I went to the hospital, and I was in labor. And I still remember this was Monday early morning, about 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock on Monday early morning. Um, I had I had a planned call at around 10 o'clock, 9:30, 10 o'clock. And my friend was with me. And this particular person kept on calling. And my friend first said that, no, she's not available. And then this person said, no, but we need to talk to her. My friend again said, no, but she's not available. She's she's with the doctor. And this person said, no, but, she said that she'd come to a meeting. And then my friend said, she's having a baby. Do you realize it? And then obviously the person kept his phone down. My second incident was also when I was having my son. This was, because I had again, I know maybe it's a little bit of a TMI, but I had it was not a normal delivery. So I had a cesarean section. So I went to the doctor on, I think, a Thursday evening, and I said, I can't do this anymore. You need to get this out. So she said, okay, I'll schedule you for an operation tomorrow morning. I said, okay, great. That's wonderful. I didn't tell anybody at work. So Thursday evening, I went, got admitted to the hospital. Friday morning, I had my baby. I was back in the ward by about, back in my room by about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. They gave me my son around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I took a picture of him and I sent it out to my colleague saying that, welcome baby boy Sinha. And everybody was like, what? Weren't you supposed to be on leave? Where did you have the child? So that's how my journey in motherhood started. And I mentioned, right, that I moved to a different role. And I was, this was around 2011. And I was still traveling like crazy. And every month I used to go to UK and or in Europe, because I was looking at the non-Americas at that point of time. And typically I would come back home early in the morning. So that was when the flights would land up. So by around 7:30, I would be at home. So I still remember one of these times I came home and my son he had just about woken up. And he was about 1.5 years, about to touch 2 at that point of time. And I went to pick him up. And he started crying because he couldn't recognize me. So, and that's when I said that, I need to take up a different role. The reason why I'm saying this is those are the challenges that as mothers, especially working mothers in tech, right? Especially if you're in an SI, because, and in a leadership role, you have to do certain other things. Those are the kind of challenges that you face on a regular basis. Sometimes it causes you to take decisions like the ones I have taken. But I think at the end of the day, it's an agreement that you have with yourself that, I'm going to do X or I'm going to do Y. And this is my decision. And on that decision, there's no point in saying that, and it can sometimes start with, I should not have gotten married, or, I should not have had a child, or whatever. But as long as you've taken a decision and you've taken that decision with an open pair of eyes, with a cool head, then it's just a matter of owning that decision. So in terms of finding the balance, I think that's like Narnia, right? If I could, walk into the closet and go to Narnia, I would have done that. I think that would have been much, much better, because you will find the balance, maybe if you're lucky, about 5% of the time. The rest of the time, it's just about you decide what's priority.
Yeah.
And work accordingly. And I think the biggest pressure that we as women put onto ourselves is that we continue to not be in the moment, as in, If you're at work, you think, oh, I should have been at home. I should have done X. I should have done Y. And if you're at home, you think, oh, but tomorrow there is this particular thing which I have to do. Maybe I should have stayed for another hour at work and completed certain things. I think that is where the entire stress starts building. And I'm not saying that, I've not gone through those kind of situations. I have.
Yeah.
But if there's anything which I've learned, it's about, whatever you're in, be in that moment, own that, give that your particular, your entire attention, and then move on to the other thing. So some of the things which I did, for example, and way back in my career in consulting, I think about 3 or 4 years into that, I started switching off my phones on a Saturday. So nobody would be able to reach me, or, I would put it on silent. The only person who could reach me on a Saturday would be my boss. And that too, if he called me thrice, I would know that, okay, there's something serious, and I would call him back. And my first would be, why have you called me? And he would be really apologetic, say that, no, this is the thing. I think it's a draw of luck. You can get good bosses who are understanding. You can get bad bosses who are not understanding. But you have to draw the line somewhere. And I think, especially today for women, organizations are waking up, realizing that making a workplace welcoming to the woman, ensuring that you really take your diversity, your inclusivity, you're taking those kind of objectives very seriously, is when as a woman that, even if I do this, it is not going to be impacting my career or impacting me moving ahead, down as far as further growth is concerned. I think when I started my career, those were the things which one worried about. I still remember I was leaving for home at around 7 p.m. one evening, and somebody looked at me and said, "Hey, you're taking a half day today?" Because in those days, pre-baby, I used to work till about 8ish. And I was like, excuse me? Because we did have that fear that, what if you don't stay that extra hour? What if you leave before your boss? But I think, again, take a decision and, say that, okay, this is it. This is what I'm going to do. And, whatever happens, don't worry. Yeah, sometimes it can work out good. Sometimes it will work out bad. But there's no point in just regretting, why did I do X? Why did I do Y? But today I know that if I tell a person that, you have to come in over the weekend, and if you don't do it, it's going to be impacting your career adversely. Those are things that are going to be taken very, very, in a very, very offensive way by the organization itself. So the organizations today have rules and regulations to ensure that doesn't happen. So I think that's one good thing. And I keep on saying that, as women, we stand on the generations who came before us. So if you look at my mother was a scientist. She was a microbiologist, and in the 1980s. In those days, I remember she had a full ride scholarship from Yale. She used to travel all over, but I would still see her, take care of her home, etc. Those are the women who really ensured that people like you and me today are able to do what we do. So we stand literally on the shoulders of giants, and I think things for women in the future are going to be a lot better. So there is this very interesting quote I heard that may you eat lesser burnt toast. It shows that as mothers, or as women mothers, when you have, let's say, toast get burnt, you wouldn't throw it away. You'd end up eating it.
Yeah.
So this woman said, I've seen my mother eat all the burnt toast. Her toast were more burnt. Mine are a little bit lesser because my husband, once or twice he's seen me and he's like, husband or children say, what are you doing? I wish that for my next generation, they don't have to have burnt toast at all. I mean, such a profound thing, but yeah, that's a
Absolutely.
little bit about,
Yeah.
things that goes on.
Wow. I mean, it's so interesting. It made me relate a lot to my career as well, being a mom of a very young child, a hero. And I think it really stood out to me when I took him on a call with me, just like a late night call like this, right? And I think he woke up from his sleep and I was like, okay, well, nobody's taking care of him. So I might as well just bring him on the call. And I just remember my mother-in-law saw that and she was like, oh my God, back in my time, 30 years ago, that nobody would even dare to do that. Everybody would be so ashamed to like bring their kids on a work call or to work, So you're right. I think we are standing on the shoulders of giants. So much has evolved. So much has progressed over the last, 30, 40 years in order for us to be here. I mean, so much of the organizations that I see out there have daycares, that are on campus and even just nursing rooms, things like that are on campus that are so supportive of women. So I completely hear your story. I love the fact that you shared about mom guilt as part of traveling, with your babies. And it's a real thing. And I think I'm just looking at the agenda. We spoke a little bit about the myth of having it all. And I think you touched on this. Having it, I was reading a similar article, and it was also somebody high up in tech. And she said it's actually possible for women to have it all, women in tech leadership to have it all, just not at the same time, which is something very similar to what you just shared, right? I think you have to find what is your priority, and then you have to focus your time, your attention on it, and then you switch gear once you feel like, hey, I've gained momentum here.
I think what's very important, and I talk to a lot of my male colleagues. I don't know whether it's a womanly trait or what, but for example, when I go home, most of the days I'm just able to switch off.
Yeah,
I just focus, either on myself or my kids or etc. And then once I'm at work, it's again switch back on. And I've heard a male colleague who said, "How do you manage to do that? I carry so much of thoughts at home." I'm like, I don't think I'm anybody special, but maybe women have that superpower. And I think we should definitely use it, because I know the amount of stress that we put onto ourselves. We don't realize, especially the guilt. It can be horrible. And I know as women, especially, one of my generation, because you're still young, I'm sure you're doing a lot of the things which I am, I did not at one point of time. We never thought about taking care of yourself. You take care of work, you take care of your home, and like taking care of yourself, what's that? And looking at physical health, looking at mental health, it is so important. The days when we grew up, it was almost like a taboo to talk about something. Physical health, you can, one can still understand. Mental health, I mean, what's wrong with you? But I think those are the kind of, I don't want to use the term burden, but really the extra luggage which women carry on themselves. And it's so, so important to decompress, not once a week, not once a month, but actually every single day, to start afresh from the next day. I know, and I use this term called arrogance of youth, and young people believe, and the young people who might end up listening to this, I know you'll say that that's not me. That's just, you're old, and hence you're thinking in that way. But please do take care of yourselves, because as women, as young working mothers, especially, in India, we still have a system, whether it be family, whether it be health, we still get help. We still get a lot of help. I know in the Western world, it's a lot more difficult to access the kind of help that we have available in India, let's say. which just puts on more pressure. So please take care of yourself, because at the end of the day, and I'm not going to be cliche, I'm not going to be using that trite thing that nobody wishes they had spent more time in office. Maybe I'll die and I wish, maybe I will end up wishing that, but take care of yourself, because you're the only person who will do that.
Yeah.
Your work, after a while, it'll go off. Your children, they'll find lives of their own. Your partner has his own thing. If he's there with you, wonderful, he or she. But if you don't take care of yourself, and, whether it be the pressures at work, the pressures of motherhood, the pressure of being the superwoman, the pressure of doing it all, can really take you down. And, we don't realize how it can impact you in the long term. So my one request to all the young women out there, please take care of yourselves.
Wow. So profound. Thank you so much, Ritu. I was going to ask you toward the end, what is a key takeaway that you have for, kind of emerging women in tech? And it seems like I already heard one, which is, trying to find time, try to find moments in your day in order to take care of yourself, because nobody else can do that but you, right? Very interesting. Okay. So incredible insight so far, ready, Ritu. I do want to switch gear a little bit to talk about your approach to leadership. Through your time at Wipro, I am sure you have been able to hire, recruit, develop multiple people under you, and those people become leaders of their own, who in return also hire, recruit, mentor other people. So from when you get a chance to reflect upon your 23 years at Wipro, right, can you share with me the gist or the heart of your leadership principles?
You're again going to get me started on a topic which is very close to my heart.
Yeah.
I am, if you haven't realized, I'm a type A. I'm a control freak. I believe what I do is always right. And I think the problem that a lot of times we see, at least I think it happens, is while you go through a lot of leadership sessions, etc., unless you've experienced certain things yourself, a lot of leadership is about your own learning. And it's, again, as I said, the early part of me being a manager, I wouldn't even say a leader. Oh, I was horrible. I was absolutely horrible. I remember one of my team members came to me for help, and I didn't have an answer for what he wanted to know. And I was like, that's your job to figure it out. And he was like, I think we were having an argument and he was supposed to do something. And I said, it hasn't been done. He said, I've tried 5 ways. I'm not able to do that. What would you do? You tell me the 6th way. And I still remember turning back, I said, that's your problem to figure out. It's not my problem. I still cringe when I think of it. What I have learned, and this is what I try to practice on a daily basis, is a leadership model called the servant leadership model, which is basically where, you're there to help your teams. And that's something which I try and do a lot, which is in terms of how do I help my team succeed? Because especially for type A's, it's very difficult to let go of things. And a lot of women leaders, and I think this is almost like a common trait, because I think we still have to make our voices heard, right? We still have to go the extra mile. We still have to figure out how do we stand out. And I would hazard a guess that maybe a lot of us are type A's. I think letting go of things, trusting people, and helping them succeed becomes extremely important, because if they succeed, you automatically succeed. So that's one of the first things which I've learned when I started practicing servant leadership. The second thing is having the humility to realize you can't be always right. You're not God. You will be wrong. This is something that, a lot of times, and there is no there is no rule book to say, how do you work every single day? How do you work as a leader? These are the 10 steps that you need to follow. When situated, when there's a curveball, this is how you need to address it. There is no defined playbook. You'll get things wrong. Have the humility to go and tell the person that, hey, you know what? I was wrong. I'm sorry. So I'll tell you something which is as recent as last week. There was a decision, there was something about a teaming thing which we had, and one of my team members came and said, I need X. And I said, no, that's not something that we will do, because I had my reasons. And I told her that, these are the reasons. Then that team member went and spoke to another team member, and the both of them came and said, hey, you know what? We should still do X. And I still remember my voice going up, and I said, we've discussed it. We're not going to go down that path. And then I looked at the person, and I could almost see her, getting very, very emotional. Her cheeks were quivering almost. After about 15 or 20 minutes, and this was an open discussion that we were having. So I then told her that, hey, you know what? This is the reason why I said we would not do it. And I think I've been unfair to you, not explaining it better. So I'm sorry. I apologize. And I made it a point to apologize in front of everybody. I think that is what is very important as a leader, to say that I'm wrong. If I don't have an answer, say that, I don't have an answer, but jointly, if we think, we might figure out an answer. I think we put on these pressures onto ourselves, and this is, I think, male or female irrelevant, is that, I'm the boss, I'm the leader. How can I say I don't know? It's not possible to know everything. So when I try and practice servant leadership, those are the things that I definitely try and practice. And my last thing, this is something which I think I do a little bit well. Of course, you have to take a feedback from my team on this, is if I am not able to support my team, if I am not able to stand in front of them when there is, hail, sleet, storm, whatever it is, if I'm not able to be that barrier, then as a leader, I'm not worth being there, because it is so easy to just say, oh, you know what? My boss is pushing something down to me. Hey, guys, take care of it. I think leaders really have that responsibility to be like a shield, from whatever is coming from top. And that's where this entire thing of when it's wrong, it's my problem. When it's right, it is my team which has done things right. So when I have a win, my team has won it. If I've lost something, I take the blame. Those are the things which I think are very, very important when, you're getting into the leadership post. And when I mentor teams, those are some of the things that I tell them that, and it is not easy. For a lot of times, especially as women, when we've grown up in a competitive, scenario where, a lot of us have had to fight for each step of the ladder so that somebody else does not get over there. I'm sure it's the same thing for everybody, but maybe as women, we've had to do a little bit more, given whatever we've gone through. So it's, you automatically get into this competitive zone. You can't compete with your teams. You have to get into a position where you start trusting people. You let go of things, help them when they're in a problem. Don't, overpower them. Again, things which I'm still practicing on a regular basis. I don't claim that I'm a master of it, but those are some of the leadership philosophies that I try to adopt and follow.
Wow. And I have to agree. These are so hard to do. Easy to say, but so hard to do. I think everybody experiences it on a daily. I think just being able to delegate, right? Versus taking control and owning that and putting that on your team. I feel you. I struggle with that every day. But I think across all of the three areas that you have highlighted, you realize that you cannot scale and you cannot build an autonomous team unless you start to take those three actions. I completely agree with that. One of one of the things I'm very curious about, just listening to your story, is I'm sure you have built many leaders throughout your journey of leadership yourself. How do you view developing impactful leaders? And how do you then identify those talent, right? How do you ensure that there's kind of succession path? And how do you identify their skill, their will, kind of some areas of improvement for them, and work on an individual growth plan for them?
Firstly, at least for me, and I think maybe for others as well, even if you don't want to admit it, we get into a familiarity bias. So you will tend to gravitate towards people who are kind of similar in nature to you. So that's one of the things which I try and look out for, in terms of I should not automatically gravitate towards somebody who looks like me. I try and get my own experiences with the people rather than, because I have built teams. When you build teams on your own, it's obviously a lot easier because you work with those people on a daily basis. When you get into a leadership position for a new team, it's very easy to get biased by somebody else's perception. I think what we need to do is spend time with the individual to try and understand what that individual is all about. Some of my most amazing people who I've had a part of my who's been a part of my team have actually been people who are completely opposite to me in nature. So they are, as I say, quiet yet confident. Developing a rapport with people, I think, is very important for them to get a sense of comfort with you so that they can open up, because it's very, very easy to create that facade. And when let's say when you initially come in, or when you're talking to a team member who's maybe not working with you on a daily basis, you'll obviously want to try and impress your manager or your manager's manager, right? You will not let your guard down, because if you let your guard down, all your ugly secrets are going to come out. So which is where, at least if you spend some time talking to the person, trying to gain his or her confidence, there is a little bit of the letting down of the guard that you're able to realize. I actually believe in being, completely transparent, and, transparent is not the right word. Complete vulnerability. I think it's very important to show to another person your vulnerability so that they are then able to become more open with you. So that's one strategy which I have adopted, in terms of how do you become vulnerable so that they are able to realize that, hey, you know what? This is what I go through as well. So maybe if I tell her, it's not going to be that bad. Being authentic, especially when you're trying to build leaders, are very important, because if you say that, if you follow do as I say and not as I do, it won't work. So whatever you're preaching, you have to practice it. You have to be extremely authentic. And that's where, in your team, you are able to find out people who have the similar kind of traits, because then they'll open up. Then they'll let you see, those similar vulnerabilities in themselves, as well as be extremely authentic. So that's the second thing which I look at. And the third thing I think is, one of my old bosses had told me that, you're like a mother hen. You try to keep everything with you. How will you build leaders in that way? And I took that lesson to heart, to the extent that one of my team members, and a person whom I have really mentored a lot over a period of 8 to 9 years. And then he came and said, I want to do something else. I want my career to go in another direction. And can we talk about it? What are the options that we can look at? So we had a conversation. And then I actually went and told him, you know what, if you don't find anything within the organization, because it's not always correct that you find everything, despite the huge size that Wipro has. If you're not able to find something, not able to find the right opening, explore whatever you want. So a couple of weeks later, he came and said that, I've taken your word to heart. I have started exploring. These are the kind of things, offers which I have got. I want to discuss with you. What do you think that I should do? And if you tell me to stay back, I will stay back. And I think that's when you're really tested, because I knew that, if he went away, A, I would lose a great team member. B, I would lose a great friend. C, I would lose a great asset for the organization. But then, he wanted to do something which at that point of time, the organization was not able to offer him. So I said, yeah, okay, let me help you. So on Teachers' Day last year, he sent me an SMS saying that, thank you for all you've done. I think that's how we end up building leaders. And that's been some of the things that I have tried.
Incredible. Thank you so much for sharing, Ritu. And I think something that really stood out with me is when you share about being vulnerable, right? And being candid, and just similar to what you shared, that you cannot always be right. At the same time, you're saying that leaders, you don't have to be strong all the time. You don't have to act like you have your stuff all together, when reality is, I think it's as messy of a world as anybody else in the organization. So I completely hear that. And it's so funny. It's one way to tell the team that, right? And tell the team that's what you want to do or you expect them to do. The second is to actually do it so that they learn by example and they see that with their own eyes and they understand that it is expected and accepted behaviors, which I think is truly the hardest part of leadership.
But Daisy, I would say one thing is that it also, I think, depends upon the organization that you're in.
Yeah.
The kind of organization culture you're working in. Because I know in a lot of places,
let's make fun. Yeah.
She's not fit. Or a woman saying that I can't do certain things or saying that I've made a mistake. It's not looked at upon nicely. So look at your organization, organization's culture, and then, suit things to make it work for you. What works for me may not work for somebody else.
Yeah.
But, try different things. Something will click.
Thank you so much for the incredible sharing so far today, Ritu. I think we've touched on the excitement and also the challenges that are tied to being a mom in a workplace. I think just the challenges of going up the ladder as a working mom and the myth of having it all as a working mom in the corporate world. And I think most importantly, something that really resonated with me is your lessons on leadership, right? What is very true to yourself in terms of being vulnerable, being open, being a servant leader, and giving the team members the opportunity to rise to the occasion is extremely important. So I wanted to wrap up the conversation today, outside the fact that I'm extremely grateful for all of the sharing that you have shared to me personally, but also to everybody that watches this podcast within Katalon. I think there's a lot of people that watches this that are, I would say, young women, right? People that wanted to be in leadership roles one day, might not have the opportunity to do so now, but it's aspirational, right? So if you could share with me your 3 advices for these young women as part of them navigating through the jungle of corporate development, what would be your 3 advices?
I think the first thing is hone your craft, sharpen your craft on a daily basis. You will not get things on a platter just because you're a woman. If you get, sometimes we do get, all the stars line up, which is a great thing, but in a lot of cases it doesn't. And that's where if you constantly keep on honing your skills and sharpening your craft, it helps a lot. Try out different things. Don't get stuck in a rut because, with the kind of volatility that we are seeing in the industry today, it is important that you try your hand at different kinds of things, different roles, different departments, even something which you've never done. At the most, what can go wrong? At the most, somebody will say, oh, you're not good at it. And you'll get maybe one bad performance review. That's about it. It is not going to be taking your career back 10 steps.
Yeah.
And the last one is believe in yourself. For every woman in tech, you have made your place. You're where you are, not because somebody gave you a leg up. You've had to fight with an education system which maybe in the elementary school or even in high school was equally balanced. But given the fact that, you don't see a lot of women in STEM, you've had to go through competitive exams if you're in India, or, apply to multiple colleges outside. You've been maybe, the only one person in your class, or maybe a group of 10 or 20 in your class, and you fought shoulder to shoulder with men, and you've made your place. Believe in yourself. Whatever anybody else says doesn't matter. As long as you know you're right, as long as you know that you have the ability, the world's literally your oyster.
Thank you so much, Ritu. So powerful. Honestly, if you don't do a podcast with us, I hope you do your own podcast one day, because I'm sure there's so many people that would just be eager to hear it. But just to recap, and I hope people remember this, you spoke about honing your craft, right? Understanding your competitive advantages and continuing to sharpen those skill sets. Incredible. You spoke about being open-minded and trying out different things, right? And maybe sometimes you take a temporary step back, but know that it is advancement in the long haul. And the last thing is to believe in yourself. I think it's so easy to doubt yourself, and it's so easy to have imposter syndrome, especially in a world that is challenging and volatile, as you have shared in the tech world today. So all the more reason to sometimes step back and kind of, look at things in hindsight and understand that you're here for a reason. But thank you so much, Ritu. I appreciate your insights and sharing so much today. I hope that this is not the last time we get, to engage in a podcast like this. I hope Katalon gets to welcome you back for multiple shows in the future. Maybe, something as personal as this one to technical in the future as possible. But thank you so much for taking the time out of your day today. I hope you do take a half day today, and hope you have a great rest of FY24.